thank you for joining us. Steve, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Steve Jones with AWS. Been here for about 7 years now. We're going to talk to you a little bit about strategic ISV workloads and why it's important to our customers and how we've been investing over quite a number of years. And you as our partners, how you can help customers as well and why it's important for you as well. And this is Boz.
Thank you, Steve. Boz Kamphuis. I lead the commercial side of what Steve described as our scope. Steve does the actual thinking behind what we do. To just start off with a joke and make you feel comfortable. 2 muffins sit in an oven. Show of hands, who already knows that one? Well, finish it. 2 muffins sit in an oven. 1 muffin tells the other, "Phew, it's getting hot in here." The other muffin says, "Ah, talking muffin." Not funny. All right, let's get started. So the strategic ISVs. Reason that we have been doing strategic ISVs for a while is because our customers in their cloud journey are requesting us to support the workloads that they represent, right? So we'll specifically talk about SAP, VMware, and Microsoft today. And we see basically 2 main motivations to start working with AWS. One, and Andy did a lot of announcements this morning, is obviously the ability to accelerate innovation within the organizations that our customers serve. But one thing that's holding a lot of customers back is the reality of caring and feeding for today's operations. So the retirement of technical debt is a key desire as well. Now, what we do between Steve and I and the teams in Amazon that we represent, what we do is we focus on the ability to make it easier to bring those lines closer together. So we'll talk about a number of the tools that we created, both for Microsoft. VMware obviously is a lot about enabling customers to have easy access to the innovation platform that AWS provides, but also to support the workloads that are hosted on these virtualized environments. Now, why are these 3 called strategic? It's because customers see them as strategic, right? When the average CIO, and I had the pleasure of meeting with Gartner yesterday, when you ask them what are the top 5 providers that you deem strategic to you in today's environment, it's very often SAP. Over 77 of the world's business transactions in the Fortune 2000 are touching an SAP system. And so for customers to be able to leverage SageMaker, data lakes, IoT scenarios, the SAP system is key to actually enabling that. For Microsoft, there's still a tremendous amount of Windows-based systems running on-prem. And so if you want to start benefiting from the public cloud, you not necessarily want to replace the operating system. You're not necessarily wanting to replace the database that SQL database presents or the custom development that has a .NET foundation. So we'll talk about that. And obviously, VMware is a very close partner, our most recent one. But 83% of the virtualization share is with VMware. And so they're a key partner in enabling either retiring technical debt or accelerating innovation. Now, as a strategy, a little bit of what we do and what we focus our partnerships on. Let's start in the bottom right corner. A lot of the basic workloads, which is probably no surprise, is about replatforming, lift and shift type workloads, right? So we support most every database with these partners or on these partners in VMware's case. A second one is the digital transformation, especially in the case of SAP, has a huge dependency on HANA, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we do there. But what we see now, and IDC just released a study, customers that are on AWS in year 1, the majority is highlighting the TCO benefits or the ability, the flexibility that IT is getting out of it. But as they actually extend in year 2 and 3, there's a much higher emphasis on the abilities to innovate and serve their constituents better, their stakeholders within the business, as they have maybe a new customer engagement platform, a supply chain operation that they want to focus on. The interoperability between the strategic ISV and AWS becomes a key focus for that. Now, on the other side, in the orange, we'll also put a tremendous amount of effort in removing the barriers, the licensing barriers, the procurement cycles, the ability to provision these environments. So quick starts is a key asset there in which we automate deploying these solutions. And then obviously, which is partly of what this session is based on today, is the partner community. These workloads are often part of the beating heart of IT, and they are not easy. There is complexity to it, even on an AWS environment, and so partners require skills, and we want to make sure that our customers have the best partners serving whatever goals and strategy they set out. So in a nutshell, that's the 360 strategy, as we refer to it, or the donut, around these three strategic workloads. Now, the pace of innovation, and for those of you that have attended reInvent for a while, this is a very frequent slides that gets updated in the amount of services and releases we support. It's very much alive for these strategic ISVs. And if I look at the scope that has been growing over the last 2-3 years, the number of offerings we support, either partner-driven or on behalf of a partner, or on just the workload serving customers that have that workload dependency, continues to increase. And so, as Steve alluded to, if you look at 2013, and actually both Microsoft and SAP go back to 2008, Steve was part of the original thought leaders that actually saw the opportunity to serve customers better by being purposeful on these strategic ISVs and not just do it as a me too. And so a lot of the ideas, I'm proud to be here with Steve, are coming from you. Now, then when I joined, you see that line increase. In 2016, 2017, 2018, part of the momentum that we're having with VMware is it's absolutely addressing a pain point, but the learnings that we had in building these partnerships around Microsoft and SAP are learnings that we leverage in where we focus, how we organize our engineering teams, how we organize our go-to-market teams. Now with that, Steve, you want to talk a little bit about the customer momentum?
Yeah, so a lot of what we've seen over the years that Boz was alluding to with customers has led us to iterate very rapidly and innovate for our platform, right? And this is across all three of these workloads. And VMware is fairly recent from a workload perspective, and us partnering with them. And there were some announcements again today. AWS Outpost is another interesting thing, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But even though VMware is a relatively new offering, we're still seeing quite a lot of customers across a number of different segments and industries. And that's because of the rapid clip at which we're also innovating with the VMware team. So today we already have 10 regions available with VMware Cloud on AWS. There's over 200 services and features now that have been iterated on since launch. We have customers like Discovery and Whirlpool and MIT, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. In the case of SAP, we've been working on this just a little bit longer than the partnership with VMware. SAP, today we have thousands of customers running productively on AWS, and you'll get to hear from Rich today from NS2. And they also span the globe in all industries. Customers like BP, who runs the entire downstream business, right? Massive SAP landscape. And again, Whirlpool, who spoke yesterday at another session, talking about the agility that some of the things Boz will talk about, some of the new innovations around platforms have allowed them to think new with their workloads. Other customers like Uniqlo, right? Massive retailer in Japan, migrating their new S4 implementation to AWS. And then from Microsoft, right? Since the beginning, almost the beginning of our platform, right? AWS was the first major cloud provider to really offer a platform for Microsoft workloads. And it really is a first-class citizen if you take a look at some of the offerings we have. And today we literally have hundreds of thousands of customers running Microsoft workloads on the AWS platform. And there was a recent study from IDC as well that estimated that about 57% of all Microsoft workloads that run in the public cloud space run on AWS. And we're happy to be learning a lot of things from customers, and that's really what goes into the iteration on our platform. So let's talk a little bit specifically about some of the specific ISV solutions, right? And some of the innovation. Boss?
Yeah, and so we put these slides together, and absolutely interested in your feedback if this starts to clarify. What we're trying to do over the next couple of minutes is for each partner explain some of what the partner opportunities are around these use cases, some of what the assets are and the offering specifically on retiring technical debt, and then a second one on helping customers innovate faster, helping partners innovate faster, and then ultimately maybe some customer evidence. And Rich, thank you for joining us and giving us a perspective on how you use these technologies. So for Microsoft, it's very much about Windows, number one. Just migrating Windows workloads and achieving the cloud-native benefits that a hyperscale cloud provider is able to extend. With Microsoft, obviously also SQL is a tremendous requirement for customers that say, I have solutions and I have mission-critical dependencies or maybe just development dependencies on a SQL database, and I don't necessarily want to go to an open source database or something that's AWS native. So SQL is very much a huge component of what we do within Amazon Web Services. Now, SQL comes in different formats with us, license included, license not included, managed type offerings with SQL RDS, or just SQL on EC2. Now then, when we get into how do you help customers innovate faster, the .NET proposition is very compelling, because it actually allows people that are familiar with .NET to, in a couple of hours, become very proficient on innovating jointly with the .NET base and the AWS native services, and get extended into natural language type of scenarios, or be it a SageMaker machine learning type of output. And then obviously for customers, or for partners, a lot of customers are looking for partners that can run and operate these environments, patch and maintain them, support them, and help customers do the digital transformation at their pace of whatever they're trying to achieve.
And so if you go back to the donut slide, right? Remember in your head, right? Some of the first strategies that we see partners finding success with their customers is really in the lift and shift, right? Getting some of the workloads that are locked up in the on-premises data centers and getting those moved to the AWS platform. And why is that? Well, because there's a lot more things that can be done and optimized as part of that process. Things like Boz mentioned, SQL Server RDS, the Microsoft Managed AD platform, and then the extension strategy comes into play with a lot of the things we have around .NET. How many of you are familiar with EC2 Systems Manager? Okay, so there's some work for us to do there, right? So EC2 Systems Manager is an amazing set of tools that allow you to automate a lot of the muck that goes into operating systems, right? And there's specifically some tools that help with a lot of tasks that become mundane, right? So think about Patch Tuesday, right? There's a lot of patches that go into patching a Microsoft-based environment, right? You can actually, with Systems Manager, automate the creation, the patching, the launching of your entire image of libraries. In fact, or the over 60+ images that we maintain for all the SQL Server and Windows images, we use Systems Manager to actually do that work. So there's a large, I guess, growing contingent of things you can do with Systems Manager, and we continue to iterate on that. Anything to add there, boss?
No, it's the reason that 57% of the public cloud Windows servers are actually running on AWS.
You mentioned quick starts earlier, right? So part of, and the quick start program has been around for a few years, and some of the first quick starts that we built were based on the Microsoft technology stack. And what we were finding is some of the earlier workloads that were being brought in were, big distributed SharePoint farms or big SQL Server, distributions with using always-on activity availability groups, things of this nature. And we were spending a lot of time helping customers and partners figure out what were the best strategies for performance, for high availability. How do I lay out my EBS volumes? What instance types do I use? How do I protect this from failure? And so quick starts really were our first mechanism in actually providing that prescriptive guidance. And so today, you can literally launch a quick start that deploys a distributed SharePoint farm across multiple availability zones in a matter of hours, right? And it's not necessarily one size fits all, but it is very good guidance on if you're actually going to go build this. You can take this and build on it, right? And we have some for Exchange. We have others for Dynamics. Again, SQL Server always on availability groups, those types of things. So a lot of guidance and work that has been done that you can actually build on and start iterating with your customers. But .NET is really, I would say, probably one of the more exciting things, in the Microsoft space in the last couple of years, right? And at AWS, open source is one of our strengths. We've led the way for innovating a lot of new and innovative things as it relates to even to .NET in the public cloud. And that includes both .NET and .NET Core computing. As you can see here, we offer a full support for complete SDK for .NET with PowerShell as well, and integration into the VS Toolkit, right? So if that's something that your developers know and love, they can develop directly within Visual Studio and deploy into the AWS environment, right? Customers are already leveraging, and we have support for .NET type deployments in our own CodeStar tools, right? Code pipeline, code commit. So you can develop complete CI/CD pipelines and manage those using, again, native AWS tooling. Go beyond that, right? And start thinking about breaking potentially some monolithic applications that have built over the years, right? Some things you may need to keep as a core, but you can actually start breaking off some pieces and using containers, right? So you can run .NET based containers within EKS or ECS. And then we also support even .NET within Lambda, right? So you can actually go into serverless and take that one more extension. So a lot of support for the Windows-based environments in .NET, and even, as Boz alluded to, bleeding into some of the new technologies like ML with SageMaker and whatnot.
And this is also from a customer perspective key, right? And so we have a concept called the .NET Dojo. And the .NET Dojo is actually executed by partners. It helps a customer that actually has a group of excellent .NET developers not have to rehire net new talent to get to AWS skills. But in about a day or two, we help train a customer that is deep in .NET how to be effective on AWS, leveraging some of the core skills they already have in .NET and adding some of the new skills that they need to be effective on AWS. And it's so simple that it unlocks the innovation relatively quickly.
So real quickly, let's just talk about a quick customer example, right? And there are a number of use cases. We picked this one. So this is Sony Media. They maintain a pretty massive library of, as you can imagine, content. And they made a decision to migrate a lot of this content to the public cloud, right? And so working with a partner of ours called DataVale, they put together a strategy, and their main business drivers were availability, obviously, to their end users, building a better architecture, both for HA as well as DR, and they also wanted to build in some offline reporting. They were finding that some of the reporting that was being done in the same SQL Server database was actually drawing down performance. And so working with DataVale, they're actually able to migrate this pretty massive system. You see 20 petabytes of archived content to AWS, build a SQL Server cluster using always-on availability groups across availability zones for high availability, and really get the business outcome that they wanted. Let's talk a little bit about the VMware offering on AWS. It's relatively new. Now, let me go back here. So a lot of customers want the agility and the elasticity of the public cloud, but they have a lot of virtual machines that they've built up over, as Bob was alluding to, on VMware. in the private data center. And it's using existing tools. They have existing tools and processes and things that are kind of wrapped up around that. And so we partnered with VMware to offer a very seamless way for customers to take these VMware-based workloads and migrate them easily without a lot of refactoring or retooling, right? So VMware, simply put, is a software-defined data center construct. It's exactly the same type of offering that you would normally run on-premise, except that it runs on basically bare metal as a service on AWS, right? It's managed by VMware. They take care of all the patching, the updates, the host maintenance. There's automated processes for host failures to automatically allocate new hosts. So a lot of that muck that goes into building, maintaining, and planning a VMware farm on premises just goes away, right? From a capability perspective, you can start with very small clusters, but also expand up to very large stretch clusters across availability zones that support up to 32 large hosts. And these hosts today support up to half a terabyte of RAM apiece. With our R5 Metal instances that are coming later this year, you'll be able to support up to 768 terabytes of RAM. So pretty interesting here.
Now, similar workloads, obviously different foundations to it. What are some of the use cases that we see customers actually leveraging this partnership for, right? So first of all, it's about cloud migrations with a single pane of glass that vSphere represents. So a lot of consolidation can happen here without the need to invest any further in the on-prem data center and still be able to increase capacity and workloads supported on the VMware platform. The second one is the data center extension, right? That bleeds into that, where you actually continue to grow to regions, availability zones, what have you. Very common scenario is disaster recovery as well, right? Maybe the hot system stays on premise for a while, but the DR side becomes an AWS deployment. And then the ability to actually extend into the native services of AWS, right? How can a VMware customer that's deploying and managing on vSphere actually extend into Poly and Lex and Alexa type of natural language interfaces? With the VMware account and the structure that we provide through VMware, customers instantly get access to those innovation services, which provides a partner opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. Let's look a little bit closer into the actual offering itself, right? So today you have enterprise customers running VMware stacks on their own data center, right? And then you have on the right side, you have AWS customers running lots of software stacks within AWS. Now to get from one to the other, they would have to typically refactor or port or replatform. In the case of SAP, right, we had SAP customers running tooling like DMO with system move, full extracts or exports of systems, and then migrating those into AWS. So it can be a cumbersome process, right? So that's where this comes into play, right? It literally is the same set of offerings, right? It's vCenter, it's vSphere, single pane of glass like Boss was talking about. And with hybrid linked mode, you can actually manage from vCenter on premises resources in AWS and on VMware Cloud. You can actually live vMotion from on-premises also into the AWS VMware Cloud. So pretty interesting, right? And then, of course, it's the same tool set experience that you get. The really interesting thing here is there's direct connectivity from the VMware Cloud offering through an ENI, which many of you know as the network construct, the software-defined network construct on AWS. So you can actually hook into many of the other AWS services that Boz was talking about, right? So then you start thinking about what are some of the other things I can do, right? So we have customers who are integrating VMC with data lake strategies, right? Or migrating a Windows environment and hooking that into .NET-based developments that they've already started on AWS. So then you start to see the merging of a lot of these technologies to actually move a little bit quicker. So let's talk a little bit about a customer here, right? So MIT is a relatively recent customer of the VMware Cloud offering, right? So they have a fairly large, as you can imagine, estate of VMware images, servers. As a proof of concept, we worked with them to migrate an initial set of systems. It was about 300 systems or so, and it took them literally about 96 hours, right? Orchestrating it, scheduling them, and getting them moved into AWS. So about a weekend, right? And they were so pleased with that, they decided to take another run at it, right? So all in all, they've moved about 3,000 images already into AWS with no downtime, right? Pretty amazing. And I mentioned, right, the vMotion from on-premises into AWS. So it's a very real thing. And this is the data center extension use case.
Yep. So SAP and AWS are looking at a decade-long partnership. Obviously, as we alluded to, a lot of, especially the Fortune 2000 companies, are relying on SAP solutions to operate their companies, right? Business applications, data warehouses, development platforms, and what have you. So over the years, we've built a lot of solutions just focused on supporting SAP software through traditional databases, be it Oracle, DB2, Microsoft SQL, Sybase ASE. But SAP has really transitioned to the next generation in databases with their HANA platform, so that became part of the scope as well. HANA has fairly stringent technical requirements, so it really it required us to look at how we support these workloads, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So similar to the other partner strategies, and it's actually an interesting combination, right? Because a lot of SAP customers are running on SQL as a combination. A lot of SAP customers have actually tried to virtualize these solutions on-prem and are requiring that same level of virtualization support as they move to the public cloud. So there's an interesting intermingling between the partner teams here that's just fascinating and helps us actually prioritize some of the things we're focused on. Very much, for years, we've seen and supported customers lifting their SAP estates to AWS, just for the TCO benefits that provides and the flexibility and the agility that they get there, right? So it's a relatively straightforward move. We don't see a lot of customers take too long to do that. Matter of fact, moving and lifting an SAP estate to SAP, there's a number of partners out there that actually execute that for mid-sized companies in less than a month. Absolutely a focus point, but it becomes a little bit less frequent that we see customers do that. The reason being is that HANA is the transformation that SAP wants customers to go through, and there is a bit of a deadline at 2025 when the support for the traditional databases will discontinue. So number two is actually the business case that is the predominant business case. And that is, how do I get started on SAP's next generation OLTP solution called S/4HANA? Or how do I get started on BW for HANA? How do I actually not just lift and shift my environment, but lift and convert it? Because of the on-demand nature of our infrastructure offerings and obviously the elasticity that comes with it, AWS is by and large, I think, the popular landing spot for that activity. Similar to the other workloads, number three, once SAP customers are there, there's the question, now what else can I be doing? What should I be doing? And we had a customer with us on Monday, E&J Gallo, is the oldest wine company in the world, has more than 25% market share in the US, has about 190 brands of wine, and I like wine, so they're by de facto my favorite customer. But they actually implemented S/4HANA, and in the digital transformation that they saw as an opportunity, abstracted a platform called WineOS, completely self-developed and created on AWS, leveraging Lambda, leveraging the API gateways to extend from tasting room to distributor to e-commerce channels on a singular platform. So it allows E&J Gallo to actually quickly explore new routes to market, explore new channels to get products to their customers, and still maintain a level of intimacy with the individual customers to the extent they can out of the tasting room. So highly interesting use cases that we see there. And then, as always, manage and operate. It is not easy, and AWS provides a whole bunch of Lego blocks, but many customers say, I like the benefits, but I don't want to become an AWS expert necessarily. So we see a lot of managed service providers and application management service companies actually enable customers to operate well on AWS. Steve, you want to talk a little bit about this? Because this is your brainchild.
It's not my brainchild. But yeah, sure, I'd love to talk about this, right? So as Boz indicated, a lot of thought has gone into how we offer some of the technology behind being able to support SAP workloads. And SAP introduced HANA technologies in-memory database sometime back, I think it was 2010 or 2011 or so. And back then, our largest virtual machine size was 244 gig. And so for a large in-memory database, it's not a lot of RAM. Now, thank goodness, the first workload that was really supported with HANA was a data mart type scenario, right, sidecar. And so we worked with SAP. We were the first public cloud provider to actually support a commodity-based two-socket E5 platform on the Intel E5 processor family to support HANA workloads in a productive way. But again, it was 244 gig. And so we immediately started working with customers, and they're like, you're gonna have to build something bigger. It's just gonna have to be bigger. And at the same time, SAP was also developing the HANA technology to support and underpin the classic ERP solution, right? So what they call Suite on HANA now, and then the next gen offerings, which they call S4 HANA, right? So, and then you start getting into some very large databases. There are some very large enterprises that for over a decade have been loading these systems up, and transactional data continues to be written to the database. So you get systems with, tens of terabytes, right? Upwards of 20, 30 terabytes of data in these databases. And HANA is good about compressing because it's a columnar database. But still, when you get into those sizes, you need very large systems, right? So we took a hard look at this. A few years back, we decided to build purpose-built equipment specifically for HANA. So up to then, it just been kind of you get what you got. We took the R instance family, which is already being designed for running database workloads, and we made that work and certified that with SAP. But the X family you see here with 1, 2, and 4 terabytes of RAM was the first foray into building purpose-built equipment for SAP HANA. It was the first ever 4-socket platform available in the public space, in the public cloud space for running mission-critical HANA workloads. And really, a lot of those customers that you saw in the beginning on the logo slide really started adopting the platform, implementing HANA back about that time.
Yep.
You want to talk a little bit about the recent developments?
Yeah, no, I mean, so what was uniquely, you hear us talk about customer obsession, but it is actually the customer feedback that bigger systems are needed. And I remember us launching the 2 terabyte system, and our leadership team was fairly convinced no customer ever needs more than that. And of course, it was very clear very quickly that lots of customers need more. The problem with virtualization is that you only have so many virtual cores to address. And for SAP HANA workloads, the core to memory ratio is a set rule, right? There's some flexibility, but you can only support that much memory with a virtualized platform. So we made the Nitro platform, and there was a little bit of explanation in Andy's keynote. Peter DeSantis talked about it earlier this week. We basically offloaded the virtualization logic into silicon, which made the 100% of the machine available, but it also made sure enabled us to no longer be limited by virtual cores. And that now, in May, June, we launched the 6, 9, and 12 terabyte systems, which are bare metal systems, but not bare metal as people think about it in a colo type of settings. They're bare metal systems that are 100% software defined. They establish themselves in an hour, 2 hours maybe, but that's it. They can be actually shut down. You can fail over from a 12 to a 9 terabytes in 5 minutes. So you get elasticity with these very large monolithic systems traditionally that become a lot more agile in this environment. I think we need to speed up a little bit because we're running out of time.
All right, buddy.
Okay. Second use case, of course, accelerate innovation. Won't get too deep here, but the API interconnectivity between SAP's open approach towards these type of systems and our own creates a lot of innovative use cases, extending deep lens cameras, SageMaker, data lake integration. We created this slide to help some of the thinking, because many companies start to think about, okay, where do I create that system of differentiation? Where is that system of record? At the foundation, leverage a hyperscaler, and I would argue that AWS is probably a safe choice, to provide the infrastructure. You get the innovation that you learn about this week at reInvent without ever having to worry about. And AWS is the only cloud provider that is basically certified for every major database as well as every SAP solution. So you get agility there without having to worry about infrastructure. Infrastructure should be built to last. The layer above that should be architected to be consumable. That is the systems of record, and they are fulfilling a mission-critical function in the operation. The layer on top of that, be it either SAP's cloud platform, AWS native, or a combination of both, is the layer that should be built to change. That should be able to actually innovate rapidly and quickly on. That should be able to fail fast on, if you will. So just a way of looking at it. Now, let's talk about a great customer of ours, AIG. They actually started with the migration of some of their SAP environments, and in a bit more than a year, where they expected to migrate about 2, 3, maybe 4 environments, they were able to actually migrate 13 environments to AWS, and they're currently in the process of actually modernizing these environments now that they have the capacity and flexibility. What even surprised us is AIG co-presented their experience with us at an earlier conference is they saved $8 million in the first year alone when looking at their infrastructure costs, right? And we hear this frequently. There's absolutely a TCO benefit by leveraging and right-sizing these solutions on demand. But talking about right-sizing solutions on demand, didn't you have a demo in mind?
Do we want to do that? Sure.
Let's do a demo.
Sure. So we'll do this. We'll let it start, and then we'll ask Rich to come up here in just a moment. So Boss talked a little bit about the elastic nature, too, of the bare metal instances, right? So I'm going to just dream up a little bit of a scenario, right? So imagine you're an administrator, database administrator. You're running an SAP HANA database on one of the virtualized X1 boxes, say 2 terabytes or so. Actually, I have one of those right here. Let's take a look at this. Right, so here I am in the console, right? I've got an SAP HANA system. It's running on an X1 32XL. You can see that here. It's in US East. Here's my IP address. I'm actually going to log on. Let's just take a quick look. So if I do a quick refresh here, it's a little bit hard to see there, but you can see that I've got about 2 terabytes available to me, right? So let's say I'm a database administrator and I really want to go on vacation, but I know I'm right at the limit. Now I'm on vacation, 2 weeks into my trip in Europe, and somebody says, I need something bigger.
I don't recall we gave that much vacation.
Yeah, well, okay. What do I do? You know, in a classic world, you're going to have to, and let's say I really need to go bigger, right? I need to get up to maybe 6 terabytes or 9. You know, in a typical world, I'm going to be thinking about, you know, migrating volumes on a SAN array or standing up another system and backing up and restoring and those types of things. But literally, it's super simple. And I'm going to oversimplify it a little bit here. I'm going to ask Alexa to do it, if we can. I hope the demo gods are actually going to be nice to us. So here's my Alexa device. I'm going to ask Alexa, Alexa, ask Elastic Compute to scale up HANA to 12 terabytes.
HANA instance resized to 12 terabyte has been initiated. We will notify you once it's complete.
All right, so let's take a look here. So immediately what you see here is, and the integrated nature, right, of these platforms, you can actually see that using Alexa skills that are built on the back end, I'm just calling APIs, right? And so what we're seeing in the console right now is I'm actually just issuing a stop command. I'm going to issue a change instance type, and then I'm just going to start the thing back up. But I won't steal the thunder from later. But Rich, why don't you come on up, and we'll let you talk.
Thanks, Steve and Boz. I'm Rich Gustafson. I run the NS2 Secure Cloud. A little bit about NS2, because we are a wholly owned subsidiary of SAP, but we are the U.S. mitigated entity, so it means we get to go have fun with all the DoD, intelligence, state and local, and all the very highly regulated industries, things like aerospace and defense and financial services. And we have a pretty in-depth cloud roadmap because historically those types of entities could not run on SAP cloud solutions because they weren't 100% U.S. citizen on U.S. soil and a lot of other reasons. So what we have today running on AWS is what we call Secure HANA Cloud. For those who know SAP, this is very similar to HANA Enterprise Cloud in the kind of concept of managing the SAP infrastructure and applications. We like we always do, take it a little bit different, where traditional HANA Enterprise Cloud is you must run SAP on HANA and only SAP. All of our regulated customers, again, that's something that's untenable for them. So we actually expand outside of that, and you'll hear a little bit more when I talk about the types of workloads we're doing there. Also, we have HANA, S4 HANA Single Tenant Edition, which is a SaaS version of S4. And what we're seeing a lot of customers doing is bringing in their legacy environments that Steve kind of mentioned, multi-terabyte legacy environments, into Secure HANA Cloud first, and then starting to pivot off and getting a lot of their RISF code moved off either to Cloud Platform or to Analytics Cloud. And that's their journey of how to get to S4 is bypass the migrate to S4 and then figure out SaaS, and they're just really coming in and either doing an initial suite on HANA migration as they come in, or sometimes not. But it's very much a, how do I take dollars out of my infrastructure and take those savings that you saw from AIG and put that into the innovation cycles and get the custom code figured out, because some of these are 20-year-old systems, and SAP didn't do things that they needed it to do years ago. Sometimes they don't do things they need it to do today, but that's a different issue, and that's the idea, is figure out what custom code you really need, get it into Cloud Platform or Analytics Cloud, and start moving down the line. We also today have success factors in the NS2 Cloud and payroll. Cloud Platform has actually got our first customer on it. It's our beta customer, so we should be generally available this quarter, and Analytics Cloud next quarter as we continue down. And we'll continue to move through that journey and bring on more and more of the SAP SaaS products into NS2 Cloud on AWS. So a little bit of why do we partner with AWS. And the first one is actually partnership. It's a true partnership. Steve and I have been working together for 4 years when we took our first intelligence customer into AWS. And it was great. Nobody at SAP knows how to actually migrate to AWS. And so we did a lot of technical exchange, and we continued that throughout. So, I spend time usually at least once a quarter, sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little less, working with Steve's team directly on here's some things we need to actually be able to operate SAP better. And we'll either co-develop it, or they'll go off and do some creative, crazy stuff like building Alexa skills to resize HANA instances, which I am going to use for a demo for the United States Army in February if Steve gives me the code, which he usually does. Things like auto-scaling. So historically, you build your SAP workloads to be your peak, year-end, month-end, something there. And that's where a lot of our customers are coming in at and saying, you got to match my infrastructure because it's critical. But being able to do things like auto-scaling up application servers and to be able to handle background jobs and then get rid of them is really awesome. And then, from an executives on down through to actual account teams, it's very much a co-sell. More than any of the other folks, because, SAP, we have to play with everybody, but I can tell you where we're going at NS2. It's really a team together of how do we go migrate a customer to the cloud. The next big thing is regulatory compliance. As I said, I'm in the regulated industries. All of those wonderful images up there, things like FedRAMP for federal and Department of Defense, PCI DSS for not just financial services, but all those others like state and local entities and anyone who's got to take credit cards, which there's a ton of in the regulated industries. HIPAA and high trust are very important. More on my DoD side right now because the health folks can often get a little more creative, but I've got to play with those, and then all the ITAR certifications. And then security, because that was the big lagging factor to get regulated industries in the cloud, was it's not secure, I'm scared. I can't lose this data. And I think we're through that now. I mean, I'll show you on the next slide where some of the customer base, but key tools like guard duty, being able to use KMS, and now with the new KMS enhancements that were announced today where I can combine KMS with HSM is huge. Private link, so that way I can keep my VPCs completely private but still leverage services like patching and system manager, which until that happened, we were having fun snapping EBS volumes between VPCs, and now we can open that up and literally truly do a management zone. And Trusted Advisor, there's some others in there, and you'll all see the slides, but I want to make sure since we have 12 minutes left that you get to see Alexa do her job. Some of the workloads we run on AWS as SAP, a wholly owned subsidiary. Obviously we run SAP workloads. And you've got a couple logos up there. We've got federal civilian government customers, Defense Department customers, so Army runs on the NS2 Cloud on AWS. The Navy runs SAP on the NS2 Cloud at AWS. Defense Logistics Agency. And then also, because I can't always share every logo, aerospace and defense customers. So we do have those ITAR type customers. We've actually got an interesting situation where we've got a Canadian company that has ITAR requirements that runs their worldwide workload on the NS2 Cloud at AWS. And because all of these folks don't just run SAP, they have a lot of either support servers or we've got a state and local tolling entity that needs image processing. And they don't really want to break that up into multiple people. So we have quite a bit of Microsoft workload, heavy into Windows Server, heavy into SQL Server, in particular in the non-SAP world, but a couple customers that do run some SAP on SQL Server. And you see a magnifying glass, someone looking at it with VMware, and that's really, we're in the early stages working with VMware because, again, these are large enterprise customers that have spent a lot of money in VMware. So we're doing the same thing that Boz and Steve were talking about of how do we work with VMware to get customers in fast and then figure out how do they modernize and take advantage of those savings. And overall, from an experience perspective, I couldn't be happier. Being a guy who has an operating income target on my head every year, AWS is fantastic. So I'll start in the middle because there's a lot of partners in the room. It really helps drive the margin of our business, which puts us in a position to either bring our prices down or occasionally take a little margin off the table. It gives me investment dollars to then go out and do new creative things. Scalability and capacity. Couple real key things there, rapid provisioning. We've had thousands of VMs in the last 3 months. The ability to reserve capacity and working again in that partnership we talked about on the last slide with AWS to say, here's what I've got coming up in the next couple months and getting the capacity reserved, especially in regions like GovCloud, which are sometimes a little bit behind and need the demand signal to come in. And then large HANA instances fully integrated with the services. The ability to spin up the U instances is what they're called if you're looking for them in the console. And we have about 20 of them about to come online here in GovCloud in the next month to start getting those deployments out. And having all those services integrated with the platforms are how we drive that margin because we're able to automate and we're able to provision large numbers of VMs without growing headcount because we build it once and reuse it everywhere. And then from a customer ROI, That's a big factor for us is, we see a real significant case here of being able to leverage customers' existing investments because they're off doing other things in AWS, and we're able to plug them in and get their SAP systems and the support systems into the cloud faster because we can plug into their existing investments. And then the other big thing is integration of our other offerings, things like Cloud Platform with AWS-based customer projects, somebody doing machine learning or IoT scenarios. So you can imagine this isn't real yet, so don't take that bear, but a scenario would be a sensor off of a Joint Strike Fighter being able to come in off of an IoT through AWS and actually get to both Lockheed Martin and the Army. So the Army gets it to do a maintenance activity. It's actually Air Force. Sorry, I was doing an Army case because we were talking about it. An Air Force use case out for a maintenance activity and a Lockheed to understand they may have an engineering change they need to propose. And you have 8.5 minutes left, Steve, to show how Alexa is going to take care of things for us.
Yeah, no, thank you for the very kind words. We truly see the NS2 partnership as a true partnership, and I know we're doing a lot, but thank you also for giving requirements that lead us to engineer on behalf of your customers as well, right? So, now, back to all three workloads. How do you get started if you're not started already? Obviously, you attend reInvent to get smart. But we're also trying to make it easier for partners to become proficient and to move through the stages of our APN tiers and achieve the competency. For both SAP and for Microsoft, we actually have a competency program that requires a number of public reference cases, requires trained and skilled, certified people within your company. And we take the success of our customer as the highest priority, and we hope you do too. But we do want to talk to your customers when you submit these public references to ensure that the experience was what they expected to get, right? So, little bit of the takeaways here. We do know that you guys play a significant role in removing barriers for customers. And so from that perspective, the strategic ISVs, if you take nothing else away from today, the strategic ISVs are first-class citizens for AWS. I know we have, in some spaces, competitive overlap, but for us, it's all about customers. And it's all about customers and partners that actually want to consume these strategic partners' workloads. And we'll always use that as the true north to offer the innovation that we provide to these platforms, and I hope that makes sense. If you're interested to learn more, please come talk to us. We're all over the reInvent floor, of course, and then at the exhibit corner. If you go to aws.com/name the partner, Microsoft, VMware, SAP, there's a ton of information there, and then on the APN platform, there's a ton of information on how you can get started in either just enablement or solution development, or in the probably the most sophisticated case, a joint go-to-market motion. Steve, how's your system doing?
We're just about there. Let's take a look. So you remember when we left this last, right? We were running on an X1 32XL with 2 terabytes of RAM. The system's still coming up, so this is a little bit dicey, but you can see it's actually been changed automatically for us to a UTB 12 terabyte system, right? Running the same private IP address, right? Same availability zone. Literally, it was just a few simple API calls using an Alexa skill. Now, the dicey part here is I'm going to try logging on and see. All right, so this was the HANA Studio that was connected to the backend system.
This is where you see the size.
That's right. So I was at 2 terabytes. We'll do a quick refresh and see what we get. Look at that. I'm up to just about 12 terabytes. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Alexa.
So that's actually amazing, right? Now, we don't think it's a very prominent use case. We don't believe a whole lot of customers will start provisioning HANA environments by leveraging Alexa. But the fact that Steve was able, in about 15 minutes, don't know the exact timing, I think it's even a little bit less, enable a customer to scale from 2 terabytes to 12 terabytes in 15 minutes. And he can take it down right now, and in another 15 minutes, the customer would be back at 2 terabytes or whatever the destination is rocket science. It truly is rocket science. And nobody that is currently relying on virtualization technologies is able to replicate that even. And especially in large SAP deployments, this becomes almost a competitive benefit, because implementing complex solutions become agile and two-way doors instead of one-way door decisions, right? We have a minute or two left. Are there any questions that you guys would like to ask? There's microphones, or you can just shout it out and I can repeat the question that I want to answer. That was a joke.
All right, if not, please do remember to complete the survey.
Oh, we do have a question.
Excellent.
On the Microsoft workloads, which you're moving on to AWS, there's a competing platform Azure.
No.
For sure. How does the cost comparisons work out in a real-time scenario for a similar workload?
The cost is generally very favorable, but we also, specifically to help customers understand what it means, we created an assessment program with partners like TSO Logic, right, that do not just look at the infrastructure cost. And we have several partners that just do cost comparisons on infrastructure cost, and I guarantee you that we are, by and large, often the best price point, right? But there's a lot of flexibility in how you price these solutions, and licensing is used often is still a boat anchor, right? There's the HBA program with Azure as well, but with TSO Logic, customers tend to save anywhere from 20 to 35% by leveraging AWS to buy the components they need. It's a strategic question for many questions, right? Are you going to continue to be beholden to an enterprise agreement, or is there alternatives and alternative technologies that you see as your strategic opportunity? And we see customers make all kinds of decisions there. But yes, cost comparisons are generally very favorable.
And we do have programs for partners too. Right.
Yep, correct.
Another question on VMware Cloud on AWS licensing. For example, I'm running VMware environment on premises and taking it to the AWS store. Do I need to change the licensing, whatever the licensing I'm using on premises? The same license can be used to?
Yeah, a lot of those licenses can actually be brought to the AWS platform with the VMware Cloud offering. There are some subtle nuances. I'm happy to take some time with you afterwards if you have some specific questions.
And one more question on your EC2 Systems Manager.
Yes.
Let's assume a hypothetical scenario where a customer has certain products or services from Microsoft on an Azure platform, and they have certain other services on Microsoft platform on AWS. Is your EC2 Systems Manager able to manage the two environments from two different clouds?
It is. It is, right? So it's an agent-based platform. If you install the Systems Manager agent, you can actually do all the orchestration work with Systems Manager across on-prem, AWS, or Azure. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
All right. Hope this was a useful hour for you guys. Enjoy the third day of reInvent and safe travels home. Thank you.